Hey, everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of the Fat to Fit podcast. I am your host with the most, Jay Scott, aka Ned Stark's Ghost on Instagram and TikTok. Joining me, as always, my hetero life mate and the guy who actually runs the show, Jared, the man, Shapiro. Jared, what's
That's right.
going on in
I'm the one
Greenville,
that
buddy?
presses the buttons. Uh, yeah. That's what I do. I press the buttons and make things work. So you're welcome, Internet. Enjoy our pretty faces.
And we are here again joining you on YouTube. Thanks for joining us as we keep developing this show as we go along and trying to build an audience and kind of convey a message. And today we're going to be talking about form, proper form versus function, your form and how it leads to achieving your goals. Like we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff, and we're going to talk about a little goal setting at the end. So if you have any questions about that, or you have any observations you'd like to make, join us in the live feed in the comment box and let us know what you're thinking. I've got that open. I'll be monitoring it as we go through the show today. So first off, Jared, you were not with us last week because you were in New York City.
Ooh,
Um,
White Plains. A little
close
north of New
enough.
York City. It's 30 minutes out. Or a $150 Uber ride.
So I've got two important pieces of business with you, sir. Number one, we are still waiting on the 10 push-up video.
That may be a little bit
Um,
longer because apparently I still can't do push ups properly with my elbow. So,
what a liar.
yeah. All I
Yeah,
know,
I'm
I went
calling
to
you the
do
L word.
push-ups, and this elbow is still popping like an MFer the whole
Uh-huh.
time. Yeah,
So, pop, let it pop.
pop, popping's not. That's not good, baby.
Pop it ain't hurt nobody.
Soon. I said August anyway, so calm down.
Oh my God. You let me down so much, Jared. So much.
Well, at least you know that I'll let you down.
I,
So you're welcome.
if there's one thing in life I can be sure of, my mother loves me and Jared will find a way to disappoint me. You're exactly
right.
right.
Keep that,
So,
that bar low.
as we wait on our push-up video with your gimmick elbow, while you were out of town last week, you were gone, what, 3-4 days, right?
Yeah.
How did you stay fit on the road?
Well, one of the beautiful things about DDP yoga, which is my preferred workout method these days, the only equipment you really need is attached. So my hotel room.
Except for your elbow. Your elbow doesn't. We don't need
Oh no,
that.
it's attached. It just makes noises. Uh, in my hotel room, I had an area big enough where I could lay down if need be, hit all my positions, all that stuff. Anything with the arms out was kind of a pain if I was on the ground, but fortunately, there's not a lot of that. But anyways, yeah, I just found a corner of the hotel room and did my workouts each morning.
So you had your mat and everything with you. Is that part of your standard kit when you travel?
No, I did it on the disgusting hotel room floor. If I drove,
Ah,
if I
why?
drove, I had to do it somehow.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, if I
So,
drive, I take my mat with me.
so
But
let me give you a
unfortunately, I
life
didn't
hack.
get to drive on that one. Towels?
And, no, just ask for an extra sheet. If you don't, so I don't know where you were staying, but I feel like you were staying in a nice place. I'm sure there was a linen closet in your hotel. Okay, then never mind. Just go to the front. So, not
We're
just
not
for
using
broke,
that hotel anymore after this trip. It was
not just for
decided.
broke elbow Jared, but anyone traveling. Working out in your hotel room is a must. Just because you're on the road, you don't get a pass for not being fit. Okay. So if you don't have your yoga mat or something like that with you, just ask the hotel, hey, can I get an extra sheet? That way you can like fluff it out, cover the whole floor, do your push-ups, your lunges, your sit-ups, anything you want to do. And then you can fold it back up, use it again if you want to, or just, leave it by the door and they'll wash it for you. No excuse not to be fit. The last time that I was gone for like a solid week, I didn't bring my yoga mat with me because I didn't want to fold it up and like crunch it in my suitcase. So that's what I did basically is I just got an extra sheet, laid it on the floor, went to town. That's how I did my yoga that week. So you're back now. You're back in your routine, even though you've
I'm
got a fake
back.
elbow injury. And
Yeah, fake. A painful fake injury.
I don't believe pain is weakness leaving the body. So when we're talking about form today, which is kind of a big topic because when we say form, that can mean a lot of things. Now, for those of you who lift weights like I do, when you say form, everyone instantly thinks, well, form is going to mean whether you do something correctly or not. I would argue there is no such thing as correctly. I think what is or is not correct, or what is or is not right, for lack of a better word, is so subjective. It's almost something that can't be discussed outside of the frame of reference for the person and the goal. And I'll give you a quick example of that. So everybody knows how squatting works. You put the bar on your back, you squat down, you come back up. Like, if you had to put it in like a Post-it note, that's what a squat is. But if you're training for a competition, well, each of the powerlifting federations, they have handbooks that tell you what is required of you in the squat. So your form training for a competition may have certain markers you need to hit versus just training for your own fitness. So outside of powerlifting, let's say that you were doing squats in the CrossFit environment, completely different dynamic than what's in powerlifting. The speed is different. The barbell placement is different. Everything is different. So what's right for powerlifting is going to be wrong for CrossFit and vice versa. And then, of course, where I live at and over in the strongman world, every kind of squat imaginable is fair game because you never know what medieval torture device a promoter is going to have you working on for a squat. You could be squatting out of a bucket, or you could be squatting, a traditional weight. Like, it's impossible to tell. So I want to preface this conversation by saying, when we say form, like, we're going to go through some specific things. Like, I'll be talking about weights. You'll be talking about your yoga and stuff, and also martial arts.
It's not yoga.
Oh,
DDP
pardon me.
Yoga. Yeah.
DDP yoga.
Yeah.
So we
I
want to
don't
make
want
sure
Diamond Dallas Page showing up upset
No.
that you called it yoga.
we don't want him kicking in that door in the background.
No.
So we're going to talk about that and kind of break down, like, what are some specific markers you can look for, and also how to avoid injury and how to decrease your possibility of getting hurt, because that's so important. And before we get too deep in that, just to give a little disclaimer, the Fat to Fit podcast is, man, I forgot what I normally say. I haven't done it in 2 weeks, but
Just breathe breathe in.
Yeah.
And out. All
The
right,
Fat
go.
to Fit podcast is Jesus. I can't believe I'm totally blanking on it.
So the Fat to Fit podcast is not medical advice.
It's not medical
We're
advice.
here
Thank
for your
you.
entertainment.
Yes.
First
Keep
and
going,
foremost.
baby.
We are not licensed doctors or physicians or any of that fancy stuff. Although I am a level 1 licensed DDP yoga instructor. That's beside the point. I'm not giving you medical advice. Purely for your entertainment.
Yes.
Consult your doctor if you have any questions. And before doing any kind of fitness,
Yes.
check with your medical advising team.
Yes. And anything that we say here is not meant to cure, diagnose, or treat a condition. And if you have trouble getting started on your fitness journey, reach out to us. We'd be glad to point you in the right direction. Speaking of, as an update, I went to the doctor Tuesday, one of those days. And I got a clean bill of health. Everything is looking good.
Nice.
So blood work looks good. I've got some little nagging injuries, but doctor's not too concerned. Neither am I. And my next step, I think you'll be excited about this. Next Wednesday, I'm getting a sleep study done.
Oh.
So, and I'm gonna got the machine. I got to take home and do it, and then I guess take it back and they read it or whatever.
That's different.
Yeah,
I
it's
go
like a
sleep
little.
in a little thing. It was not fun.
Yeah, it was described to me as like a suitcase, and basically you attach the sensors on you and go to bed, and then you take it back the next day. So,
That's interesting.
my doctor, who is an absolutely brilliant woman, she said, I'm almost positive you have sleep apnea. And I was like, yeah. She goes, yeah, because your energy level is a bit low, and also you have nothing that even resembles a neck. So usually people with necks
You do not.
don't have sleep apnea. So I
That
was like,
collar
oh,
is
thank
not
you.
hiding it. It's not
Yeah,
there.
I know. It's the worst. I just have no shirt on. But yeah, so when we say, like, all joking aside, when we say go check with your physician, I mean, I'm passionate about that. Like, seeing a doctor on a regular basis to save my life, and I hope everybody can take it seriously. Go get your blood work done, listen to your doctor. And if they give you some information you don't like, maybe get a second opinion. But just because it doesn't jive with what you think doesn't mean the doctor is wrong. The doctor's there to keep you safe, and maybe sometimes what you want to do puts you in danger. So keep that in mind whenever you're dealing with your medical professionals. Their job is to keep you safe. It's not to keep you satisfied.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. They're not
so
going to tell you to do something that's going to get you killed.
exactly.
That doesn't look good on their record.
No, not at all. I find that the more honest you are with your doctor about what's going on or what you want to do, the better they can help you, and the more willing they are to help you because they know who they're dealing with. But so that's what's going on with me. So we're talking about form versus function. So for those of you needing a definition or just kind of wanting a rundown, so when we say form, we're talking about the manner in which you do something. So, like, if you were curling a barbell, form would be you put the barbell in your hands, you bring the barbell up to your chest, you lower it back down, rinse and repeat, right? That's form. And within that, there are a lot of things you could tweak to either make it more or less difficult depending on what your goal is. When we say form versus function, when we say function, I kind of like to use that term to mean like from a nuts and bolts perspective, like mechanically, what am I doing? It's very closely related to form, because proper form will lead to greater function. I like to think of weightlifting as having a cause and effect situation, where, like, if I lift more in a certain movement or in a certain body part, that body part becomes stronger and it functions better. Which is kind of the point of weightlifting, is to function better in real life. And I think that gets lost a lot of the time. So when we say form, there are things unique to weight bearing exercises. For, like, using the curl as an example, everybody's curled a weight before. So you got weight in your hand, you lower it, you bring it up, you're curling, right?
Yeah.
If your goal is to, like, if your goal is to grow the size of your biceps, if your goal is to get your arms bigger, right? Then you're going to want to make sure that you do everything you can to keep as much tension on the bicep as possible. And a lot of people, especially younger lifters or less experienced lifters, they confuse completing the set with completing the set properly. And that's not always the same thing. If you're programmed to do 3 sets of 10 or 3 sets of 12 or whatever, that's great. But if you can't do those reps properly, you're probably shortchanging yourself. So, for instance, with barbell curl, you're going to want to bring the weight all the way up. You're going to want to lower it down, but you're not going to want to lower it down so much that your arm is completely straight. You're also not going to want to bring it up so high to the point that you're bringing your elbows forward, because then you take tension off the bicep. So for the average person doing a barbell curl, you're going to want to lower the barbell down until your elbows maybe at like a 155, 160 degree angle. And then you're going to bring it up to about like a 30-degree angle, and you're going to squeeze your bicep up top, and then you're going to lower it back down under control. Now, that's easier said than done, because when the weight gets heavy and your muscles get tired, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to lift. Yeah, you're going to gesture forward, and you're going to put your body weight to help you lift the weight. Now, cheating for 1 or 2 reps every now and then certainly not going to kill you. But if you allow yourself to break form on a regular basis, you're never going to teach yourself to lift properly. And by properly, we mean safely. Because with a heavy curl, the heavier it gets, the poorer the rep you do becomes. You're going to want to get underneath it. And the more you try to get underneath it, you're going to put your lower back at an odd angle. You're going to hurt your back. And not only are you going to hurt your back, you're going to look like an idiot, right? Because no one thinks it's cool when you're struggling to get a weight up. Exactly. But also, your goal for lifting the weight was to improve your biceps. If you're lifting with your stomach and your ass and your calves, you're not lifting with your biceps.
This is true.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, because so many people bring their ego with them to the gym. And there's nothing wrong with having an ego. Like, I'm a big, strong guy, and my pride is on the line every time I go in the gym. But I also know that if I hurt myself, then I'm not going to be able to go to the gym anymore. And I have to weigh that whenever I see someone doing something that I can't do, or vice versa. Like I have to take into consideration the fact that, well, I could try to copy this person, but is it worth putting myself in danger? So when we say form, again, it's going to be relative. I'll give you another example of barbell curl that's a little bit different. So again, the average person is going to want to just, not all the way down, not all the way up, tense the muscle throughout. That's what you're going to do. Now, if you do competition curls, right, because strict curling is a competition sport, then your considerations are just a bit different, because just like in the example I used earlier of the squat, if you're doing a strict curl competition, you have to have your shoulders and your hips touching the wall at all times. Your feet are going to be in front of you in a manner in which it won't allow you to help lift the weight. So you're 100% curling on bicep strength. And for most people, they don't train that way. So it's incredibly difficult. But for people who do train in strict curl competitions, that's how they train, that's how they practice, so that's how they perform. So when we say form, sometimes form for the average person is to keep them safe. But sometimes form for the competitor is to make sure that they're doing sport-specific movements to help them when they go to perform.
Yeah, that's more in my world with jiu-jitsu. There are different rules for different organizations. Obviously, things like leg locks and such. Some people allow them for certain belts, some don't. But there are definitely some forms where you can get disqualified if your arm is placed just slightly different, causing a choke. Man, I'm trying to remember the example. It actually came up in class the other night. But there was a white belt competition, or competing, coming up. And our coach showed us a move. And he showed us just by changing the grip slightly, it went from an effective submission move to an illegal submission move in that specific tournament. So yeah, knowing your form, knowing the rules for your form, for what you're doing, for the function, so to speak. I don't know what's happening behind my house right now, but it's very
I'm
loud.
ignoring those sounds.
Yeah. So yeah, know what you're looking to do. There we go.
Yeah, so so you can educate me a little bit on jiu-jitsu. So I mean, I train jiu-jitsu not to the level you have, so I mean I'm certainly familiar with it, but in competition, I've never done anything competition-wise with jiu-jitsu. And I don't want to sound like an idiot, but is it not just no holds barred, just choke the guy out or tap him out? Isn't that what you're there for?
No, I'll go over it more offline with you, because there are lists for different organizations.
That's whack.
Yeah, it can be confusing. That's why you gotta know where you're competing, know the rules, and that's why you have a coach.
I mean, I know certain I've heard before, the heel hook is illegal because you tear somebody's ACL.
Right.
But I mean, short of something.
Some organizations allow it for blue belt and above.
Really?
And above. Mm-hmm. Again, that's why you have to know where you're competing.
Okay. So answer me this then. So I'm going to interrogate you a little bit on this. So you're doing jiu-jitsu. Is your goal to compete at some point, or are you just looking to be able to fight your wife off when you're not in the mood?
Me personally, for jiu-jitsu, is a stress reliever and fitness, and some basic self-defense also. I do not, at 40, I don't see myself becoming competition level.
Don't like that.
There's a reason. If I wanted to compete, I need to be able to train at least 5 nights a week, and I can't do that right now. If I really wanted to, I could reorganize my life in a way where I could train that often, but I just don't have that kind of time. So the competition is not the important part for me. I enjoy as a hobbyist, so to speak.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that it's so important that I think it's so important to communicate that, because like you said, you're I'm a hobbyist. So there's a line that you're willing to draw before you're done. Right.
Yeah.
So even in practice, it's well, I'm only willing to do this because it's all I need to do. And that keeps you from getting injured, because you have no motivation to overextend yourself, and and that's where when we talk about form breakdowns, that's where most things occur is when people try to go beyond their means. Like, if you're like using a squat example, I remember when I was in high school. Oh my god, I forgot about this until just now. I was always a pretty big guy, but I had never squatted before, like ever. So I don't know how to squat. No one's born with the innate ability to lift weights. It's not the way it works. And I remember we were in the weight room and I was squatting 135. And I remember I was like, wow, I can do this. It feels great. And so when the coach left specific instructions. He told me, he was like, don't squat without me here, because he wanted to be there, to help me. And of course I didn't listen.
No, of course not.
And,
Who does?
and I remember this kid loaded 315 on the bar, and he's like, man, I bet you could do that. And he wasn't like, he was being honest, like I know you can do this. And so I get there and I get under it, and as soon as I go down, I just sit down on the bench and I can't move. So, and he's like, oh crap, and I'm like, help please. and, and God bless Coach Wright, he came in and and he saw what was happening, and he just walks up and grabs the bar and picks it up off my shoulders, because he's this giant bear of a man. God bless him. He was such a wonderful mentor to me. And he
I hope
read
he gave
me.
you a hard time about that.
He drove me home to my mom and dad's house
Dear.
and told them what I did and how dangerous that was. Because I had some amazing mentors in high school that taught me how to lift weights, and they really took an interest in me. And the thing they preached is, you've got your whole life to get strong, but you've got to learn to lift the right way to begin with. So, we had an old school dungeon-like weight room, and they taught me how to squat. They taught me how to bench press. They taught me how to use the leg press and curls and everything. And even to young kids, they said form over everything. Like, your weight doesn't matter, because if your form is safe, you will be injury free and you can continue to progress. If your form is nonsense, you're going to hurt yourself, or you're not going to maximize the potential from the muscle group you're trying to work. And I think that's a thing people just get so wrong about weightlifting. We all want to be strong, but there's a process to it. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to build and you have to be committed. And to do that, you have to set goals and priorities. And the same thing with you in jiu-jitsu. Like, you're like, this is a hobby. It's not a pursuit. So you draw a line of what you're willing to do.
Yeah, and who knows? There's always a chance, if I get more free time or just really want to dedicate myself to competition, I could do that. But that's not what my goal is.
Can we make a commitment live on the air?
Oh dear.
If you get divorced,
Prepare to be disappointed.
If you get divorced, you'll compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament.
If that hopefully unlikely situation happens, then yes. I mean, I got to put my time somewhere, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm hoping for. What I would hope is that your wife would get so
Hopefully
excited.
Never watches this episode.
I hope she would get so excited about your progress with jiu-jitsu that she would say, "You know what, Jared? I want you to compete, and we're gonna win a gold medal, baby."
We'll see. I'm sure if I really wanted to, she would get behind me. But
yeah,
along with jiu-jitsu, I also do DDP yoga. And
yeah,
that's something I'm working on an instructorship with. I'm working on level 2 certification now with that. And I mean, that for fitness, that's more my priority. Jiu-jitsu is fun in burning off a lot of extra calories. But DDP yoga is what brought me back to the jiu-jitsu dance, so to speak, from taking a few years off and getting very out of shape, unless you count round. So I was definitely round. Yeah, that's more my priority is DDP yoga. And that's why that's daily for me.
When you say it's a priority, obviously the business side of DDPY is a big deal for you. So you're becoming a level 2 instructor now. Exactly, like, what happens level 1 to level 2? Just gives you greater access to clientele or different movements, or what?
So level 1 certification, you're a little bit more limited in what you can teach.
Okay.
There are specific workout routines to go through. Level 2, you actually get to the point where you understand the way those are put together, and you start creating customized workout
Okay.
routines. That's probably the easiest I can point out. But yeah, you basically have a lot more freedom to teach.
Okay. And so I guess that's kind of leading me to my next question. So, because again, we're talking about form and function today. DDPY is unique in that, like, Paige screams literally at the top of his lungs in every video, make it your own, make it your own, because we know that the DDPY program as a whole is meant to be rehabilitative for a lot of people. So, in working with yourself and working with clients as you have, when it comes to like the actual nuts and bolts form doing the DDPY movements, um, what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen with teaching that to people? Like, do you think people are just lacking an understanding of their anatomy, or are they maybe more just trying to do too much? Where do you think the pitfalls are with body weight movements like that?
Um, I think from what I've seen teaching classes, a lot of people, there's an anatomy thing. Like if you tell people to do certain things or move a certain body part, they don't understand exactly what you mean, and that's why you're showing them also. Um, man, thinking here. Think of how to put this into words. It's form. Definitely, I see a lot of bad form, and it's people not being aware.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. People not being aware. So, for instance, in a triangle.
And what is triangle for those of us who don't know?
Yeah. So you're in a warrior position where your feet are mostly in line. You got your front foot going straight, back foot.
Can you show us on your empty floor?
No,
I was trying to
not in these
just.
shorts.
Oh, okay. I'm not even wearing pants, so that's fine.
Man, I've gotten used to working from home. It's like gym shorts all the time. But these are the really bad ones. Anyways,
Okay.
front foot, back foot is the angle. Heels cutting the instep. So one of the make it your owns is if you want to more challenge, step out further. Want less challenge, you can step in. And you're not killing the form by doing that. You're just making it more difficult or less difficult. But the important part is you need to keep the front leg for triangle needs to stay straight. A lot of people will let that knee pop up, and when you do that, it's very bad for the ligaments and the small muscles around the knee right there because it's not supported properly.
Because all that pressure is going right to the point of your knee at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things with the level 1 instruction is making sure people do not pop that knee up.
Okay.
And when you're moving into that position, it's a thing that your knee is going to want to do. So you have to be aware of it. I know teaching classes, that's something I've had to get on people about many times. Also, in a similar position, Road Warrior 2. Your feet are in the same position. This position, though, because you're centered more, the front knee is bent.
Just a little bit, though.
A little bit, yeah. You want the knee actually over the ankle.
Okay.
And again, that's something I always say during class. Make sure your knee is over your ankle, not past it, because once you go past it, again, you're putting that extra stress on there. Your weight's not centered, et cetera, et cetera. But with the Road Warrior 2 position specifically, because you're opening your shoulders and you're turning your hips a little bit, that front knee is going to want to go in. And again, if you let that knee go in, you're putting unnecessary pressure on there. So you have to get on people to make sure they're pushing back. And a lot of times they don't even realize it's happening. It's just a thing their body wants to do.
And I always tell people, like, take an anatomy class. Like, if you can't afford to take one in college or whatever, that's fine. Like, I'm sure there's all kinds of free anatomy lessons on YouTube, or Khan Academy or whatever, something like that. Or if you're an artist, you absolutely must take anatomy classes to be an artist. You'll learn so much about how the body is constructed. And I think that that's a common theme among anybody in any of the fitness realm, is that a lot of people who are new, like, they see something that they want to be or something that they want to do, but they don't know what they're working with. They don't know how the muscles work. They don't know how their body's constructed. They don't know their bones and their joints. And like the example I gave of me trying to be in ninth grade or whatever, trying to squat 315. It's like in my brain, I was like, well, of course I can do that. Like, and it's absurd as an adult, but as a kid, you don't know any better, and not thinking that, well, if I, like bottomed out on that weight, I could pop a, tendon in my knee. I could hurt my hip. I could hurt my neck. I could hurt my shoulders, because at that point I hadn't taken any anatomy classes. So I didn't understand the physiological component of that.
Yeah, you just think you're one solid muscle.
Exactly. And you're not, like,
No.
and me and my art education, having to do so much with anatomy, has really taught me, like, the body, like, it sounds cliche, but human body's amazing, but the human body can compensate for a lot. But outside of the body, when you have weight or you're in a machine or something like that, your body can only do so much before something breaks. So, your example of the warrior pose, wanting the knee just over the ankle, right? That's a power position. Like, you could, and like, look at wrestlers and circus performers. When you see them plant a foot, we're straight from the ankle to the knee, and then we're like at a 45 degree from the knee to the hip. That's a power position. You could stand multiple people up on your legs like that all day long.
Yeah.
And we do that in wrestling all the time. Like, you can do just about anything from that position.
I call that the He-Man stance.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you remember the figures, that's how they're all squatted.
And because when you're in that position, your knee is not being pointed out or forward, so it's protected by the giant muscles in your thigh, and your hips and your glutes are nice and tight to keep you upright. That's the strongest position you can be in. So one thing I always try to teach people is, when you're lifting weights, or for wrestling too, when I was teaching people to wrestle, you've got to learn what your body feels like when you do things, because in the weightlifting world, we call it the mind muscle connection, and it's a real thing. Like, as I have evolved in my weightlifting and my strongman, I know what my body can take and not take. I know how to push myself right up to the limit, and I know when I get there I have to back off, because then I'm risking injury. For people who don't yet know their limits, it's important that you take time to work with light weights, or to work with just your body weight, and figure out how it feels. Like, when you mentioned the triangle pose, a lot of people probably don't think about, and this is probably getting a little too esoteric, and I'm sorry, but the geometry of moving the human body. Like, almost everything is going to be in a power position at a 45-degree angle, right? But you can't get everything at a 45-degree angle. And you have to think about things like your arms. If you've got a weight in your arm, yes, it works your bicep. Yes, you can work your tricep, but all the pressure is going to be held on your shoulder. And if it's heavy enough, you're going to feel that in your back and your chest too. So if you start overloading these smaller muscles, it's going to wind up causing your function for the larger muscles to be impeded. So you have to be careful what you take on, or how much you challenge yourself, because there's not always going to be something you can just bail out on. Even with body weight stuff, like me doing DDP yoga, like the first couple weeks you could have sold tickets, because the warrior pose was one of the few things I could do well right away. But even doing that, I realized how limited my ankle movement was, because my ankles would be on fire when I got done. And that's because I had never bothered to stretch them or train them before. They were just an inconsequential thing. I never thought twice about my ankles.
And the tendons around there just didn't stretch out.
Exactly. And in your ankles it's one of the strongest joints in your body. Your ankle takes all of the load of your body. When you move your calf muscles and the muscles or the ligaments and tendons in your feet and your ankles, man, you can move mountains with that. I just bought a new car. I got a Jeep, and it weighs.
Welcome to the club I used to belong to.
Should have never left. And to all my Jeep people, and my Jeep, I think it weighs, I want to say it's right about 5,000 pounds. And
you've already picked it up, haven't you?
No. I went to the store yesterday, and I bought a couple things for it. And when I was at the store, they had some rope on sale, and it was like a 12-foot rope with hooks at the end, and it was rated for 2,500 pounds. So I got two of them.
Where this is going.
And I said, I got two of them. I can hook both of them to the Jeep. That'll pull 5,000 pounds. We're good to go, right? Because you never know when you'll need a rope.
Exactly.
Now, my thought process was I can hook both of these up to the hooks in the front of the Jeep, hook them to my harness, and use it for truck pull. That was my thinking. But I wanted to test it out first. So when I was loading everything in the back, there's a little hook on the back of the Jeep, and I ran a rope through it and put it in neutral, and I started to pull my Jeep toward me because that's how strong I am across the parking lot. And standing there, that's very difficult to do, but just bend my knees slightly, drive my heels into the ground, and I've basically created a position where I'm literally either going to pull the Jeep or I'm going to pull myself across the asphalt because that's the strongest position you can be in. Like same thing as if you're squatting. If you squat down to just above where your hips and your knees are parallel, man, that's the prime. Like no one can move you right there, but you learn where your body is because for me, for years and years and years, doing tug of war, truck pull, that kind of stuff, or being a post for people in the wrestling world, I know exactly how low I need to be at my maximum position. And yesterday, like I said, in the parking lot of Ollie's, here I am just squatting down about 6 inches, pulling my truck toward me. And it sounds ridiculous, but like in the years it's taken me to learn this about my body, it's allowed me to do things that other people can't even imagine doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of it.
And that's enough for me pinning roses on myself.
That's cool. My little electric car weighs a lot less, so I'm sure you could do that with it too.
I could practice on your car.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have those neat hooks. Don't worry. Once Jeep goes electric, I might be going back. Don't worry.
Well, I think my greatest feat of strength, and we talk about form. I mean, I think this might be the craziest thing ever. When I was training for strongman several years ago, I had Dodge Ram. I'm sure you remember that. And I was always pulling my truck or pushing it and doing different things. And I got a wooden it's basically a wooden bar, and it's for Moss Wrestling, MAS Moss Wrestling. And basically, Moss Wrestling is I grab a bar, you grab a bar, and we both try to pull each other onto the other side. And it's very difficult to do. So I was practicing that, and I would hook a rope up to this bar and hook it to my truck, and I would grab it and I would curl my truck toward myself. And and I got to a point where I was able to basically curl here, and then I had a second rope, pull this, grab the slack, and I could just pull my truck from on a like a 0 degree, level road. And I remember doing that, and our mutual friend Jared Fritz, he was like, Jesus Christ. Like he's like, what's happening? And I told him, I'm like, yes, I'm big, yes, I'm strong, but more important than both of those things, I'm using a form that allows me to do this. My hips are bent, my knees are bent, my heels are into the ground. And as I'm pulling, I'm not letting the weight pull my body forward. I'm tight. Because once I'm tight and I'm not moving, whether or not I move the truck, I won't get hurt because I'm not going to put my lower back or my neck or my spine in a weak position. And I think that's just a difficult thing to explain to people because you see, or like Olympic weightlifters, you see these guys doing this a clean and jerk, especially, and you think, my God, how do they do that? Well, hours and hours and hours of practice is how they do it, because they're not practicing always with the heaviest weights possible. They're learning their form. They're learning how much they can throw their elbows back. They're learning how low they need to squat to maximize their strength. And then they're applying that to those big lifts, and that's how they become Olympians.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point too. Don't go running into the gym and going full weight right away, especially if you've been out for a while or getting into it. Do you have any suggestions for our proverbial common man that is a little intimidated by the gym?
You mean just the guy who's working hard with his hands?
Yeah, that guy. Any tips for where he can go to get good advice on proper form? I mean, obviously you can go on YouTube and type form,
sure.
but
and and we've talked about that a few weeks ago. Like, I'll give a very brief example of finding good form on the internet. When I was getting ready for a powerlifting contest, I had trouble with getting my squat down low enough where it would pass because, for instance, I was going to lift in the US APL and the US a powerlifting league. I guess I'm not sure what it's called, but it's a big league. And their thing was that your hips had to come at least parallel with your knees. Okay, and that's pretty much common in all powerlifting federations. Is that you have the hips have to come down to the knees, and I was having a hard time with that. So in order to get better, I started looking up videos of guys who were built like me, who were champion squatters, because I know that I wanted to lift in that martial style. So it would behoove me to look at other people who are about my size and shape and see what they do. But that's also with the benefit of having a lot of years in the gym and competitive experience. So I could see what they were doing and I could draw from it, and I didn't need it to be taught to me. I just needed to observe. Now, for the average person, or maybe the person who's either lapsed or never been to the gym before in their life, the best advice I would give you is, if you could afford it at all, get a personal trainer. There's no, like, I know that I'm a very competent person in the gym. I feel confident I could train anyone to do anything, but I also know that I'm not certified, and people who are certified to be trainers have a different, complexity to their expertise, and their job is not to know for themselves. Their job is to teach to other people. So if you can get a personal trainer, by all means, get a personal trainer. Even if you can just afford once a month, like one session a month to get you started would be great. If you can't afford that, if you're like, look, I can only afford my Crunch membership for $9.95 a month, all hope is not lost. If you're going to search the YouTube or social media, like, try to make sure you're looking at videos for beginners. Don't, like, if you're just starting out in the gym and you're wanting to be, I don't know, if you're wanting to be the next, Ronnie Coleman or whatever, great. More power to you. Don't watch Ronnie Coleman videos to learn how to lift weights. Don't watch videos of Braun Strowman in the gym because you want to be strong like him. You need to learn the fundamentals of your body, and you need to learn the fundamentals of lifting. And you also need to get the experience of being in the gym and doing the thing, so you know what it feels like, because weightlifting on a higher level, it's as much mental as it is physical, because you got to block out pain. You got to block out fatigue. Like, especially if you want to do strongman, because it's insane and it's dangerous, and you have to get a different mindset to do that. So don't think you're going to come into the world and suddenly just be good. Like, expect to be bad, expect to fail, learn from those failures. But like I said, go online, just type in, squatting for beginners, bench pressing for beginners. Find videos where people are going to be demonstrating the movements as they teach them to you. It's not that complicated for the most part. There's a lot of free resources out there, but make sure you're looking at stuff for beginners. Don't read the magazines. And, like, if you get on Instagram, there are so many great people out there, but so much of it is fluff. Make sure that you're actually learning from someone who's a teacher and not from someone who's just trying to increase their views.
Yeah, I think you had a good point earlier about learning anatomy as well. Because learning the way everything connects, as you're learning that form, you understand why it's important. And to me, knowing why is always more important than knowing how. Because once you know why, teach a man to fish versus, give him a fish.
100%, man. 100%. Like, and shame on me. I never got certified to be a personal trainer. I did everything except take the exam, and just studying to be a personal trainer. It was the first formal anatomy training I ever had, and just learning how all the muscles work and the range of motion for the joints and all that stuff, like, just blew my mind, because up to that point I was like, I squat until my leg tired and die, like, that's all I ever did.
You up.
Yeah, like, I bench until I fail and the bar falls on me and I scream and then someone has to rescue me. Like that, I was like a caveman. And once I started learning, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually not helping myself. All I'm doing is looking like an idiot. That's all I'm doing. Like I'll give you a crazy example of specificity in training. So the contest I have coming up, which hopefully COVID, please Lord, doesn't take away. I'm gonna have to do a keg.
Hopefully, YouTube doesn't demonetize us for mentioning COVID.
Oh gosh. It,
Anyways,
I get vaccinated, wear your mask. I had to. I'll have to do a keg press, and the keg press. I'll have the keg onto my chest, and then I'll press it up. So one way that you can train for that is do an incline bench press. But another thing you need to train for that a lot of people don't think about is the idea of 250 pounds sitting on your chest. So last night, I'm in the gym in the incline, and I had started. Well, I had I think 205 or 215 on there, and I just brought it all the way down to my chest and just let it rest on my chest, and I made myself breathe against it, and I felt how that felt on my chest. Then I went up to like 250 and then 285. And 285, I was like, I'm just gonna hold it right on top of me and breathe deep because I want to know what this feels like. Because if I'm digging for that last rep and I've got the weight right here, I need to know how my diaphragm feels with that pressure against me. And I know it sounds sadistic, but like that's how you have to train. Like tonight, like I'm mentally preparing myself for tonight because I've got to do Zercher squats. And Zercher squats are when you hold almost like you're doing a curl and the bar is in the crook of your elbow. And I'm going to be doing Zercher squats and Zercher holds tonight because that's how I'm going to practice for doing the Conan's wheel on my competition. And that hurts. Like it hurts so bad. And it's so hard. And I don't want to do it at all. Like I'm hoping that something happens, like I fall down the stairs or something, because it's pain. And that's a response that I have to overlook because if I want to compete, I have to be able to take that pain and do it, which is why strongman is insane and no one should do it.
yeah, and that's so we have there's a competition coming up in Spartanburg Saturday, whatever day it is, 2 days from now, and we've got about 5 people in my jiu-jitsu gym competing. So this week, what we've been doing, back to form, we've been doing a lot of basic drills, nothing really too crazy. But then at the end of class, our coach is having the competitors go out there and just roll with different opponents for 30 minutes straight, no break. I mean, other than switching opponents. And there's a couple kids, I mean, these are young kids, like teenagers still, that you can look at and they're like, oh, we're ready to give up. And they're not old enough to understand this yet, but by them training and being good at their most exhausted, they're going to have that form when it comes to the function. When it comes
preaching
to
the gospel
tournament. Yeah, just like what you're talking about with your 285-pound bar sitting on your chest. You may be exhausted during the competition, and you may end up in that situation, but you've been there before now.
Man, so, you got me hyped. I want to cut a promo, man.
Oh, well, go ahead. Just watch the swearing and all.
Man, we got to start cussing on this show. But no, like dude, you're 1,000% right.
I try.
When like your first couple sets or your first couple exercises, like that's nothing, right? Like if you're trying to max out or you're trying to like hit a new PR or something, you want to do that early in your workout when you're fresh. But when you're trying to build endurance, when you're trying to like grow the size of your testicles, you do the hard stuff at the end of your workout. Like when you get to the end of your workout to complete it, you have to, it's grueling. It should be grueling. Like if you're going to be a competitor, like I always think of it like whatever you can do in training should only really be 85 to 90% of what you're capable of doing. Because when contest time comes, you don't have any of the other BS or distractions. You have just the lift or just the movement or just the fight or whatever. You don't have the warm-ups and the stretching and the drive-in and all that. You have just show up and lift, show up and fight, show up and do whatever. So like it's so important that and these things are kind of related because it's so important that you push yourself to your limit, but you have to learn what those limits are in a safe manner. And you have to learn how to keep your body in the right forms necessary to not only progress, but to remain uninjured. Because the last thing you want are soft tissue injuries or ligament damage or like twisting an ankle or something like that. that's only going to hurt your prospects. So you have to get over the ego, and you have to just say, man, I'm going to focus on just this small weight, this small number of reps. I'm going to tape myself and watch it back. I'm going to critique myself. All those things are so important. And in time you'll progress, and in time you'll get better. But when you're just starting out, it's so important that you remain humble, and that you just allow yourself to grow at a snail's pace for at least a little while, because if you don't, you're going to hurt yourself and be on the shelf and you can't do anything. Yeah. But man, just maybe it's like that Muhammad Ali quote, and I know I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, when does the workout start? And it's like, it starts when I get tired, right? And it's like, so you can run a mile, great. Well, if you can run a mile easily, why aren't you running 2 miles?
Yeah.
If you can run 2 miles, why aren't you running 3? Yeah, exactly. Like, don't give up. Yeah. Hustle, loyalty, and respect, baby.
Yeah. Can't see me.
Like, I get excited, man, because I think so many people sell themselves short. But I feel like so many people sell themselves short because they don't prepare for success. Like, they don't start things out. They don't exercise the most important muscle, which is their brain. Like, because they think, oh, I'm going to go in and lift all this weight. Oh, I'm going to go in and do all this. Oh, I'm going to kill myself. Like, and all that stuff is great. But, if you're just out there just servicing your ego, or if you're just out there doing something to say you did it, man, you're not achieving anything. Yeah. Go out there with purpose. Go out there with a goal in mind. So, manifest your goals and say, here's what I want to accomplish. Then get a sheet of paper and write down what those steps are. And if you're a newbie in the gym, or you're, lapsed from the gym, well then, be humble enough to just be willing to work your way up from the bottom. Don't try to start at the top, because you'll fail every time.
Yep.
And that's my sermon. I could preach on this all day long.
Well, I think we should go out while you're hot, because
okay.
You gotta
I am
pick
hot.
things up and put them back down.
I do. I run hot, man, because I hate hearing people say I can't. I can't does not live in my world. It does not. There's no place for it here. Like, and it's a fine line between, I will not tolerate somebody saying I can't, but then I also need people to know what their limits are, and to thoughtfully and methodically work within those limits to push what their ceiling is. Well, and that's a balancing act.
If you say you can, or you say you can't, you're right.
Absolutely.
So, on that note, I think we're good with form versus function for this week. If you're enjoying the show, please be sure to share, subscribe. We want to grow the audience. And feel free to tweet us if you have anything you want to hear us cover that we haven't covered already. Follow us on social media. Eventually, I'm going to do those 10 counts. Eventually. Next month,
dude, you're
August.
only disappointing the whole audience.
Well, now they know how you feel.
Yes.
Yes. But yeah, that's all I've got. Jay, if you want to add anything.
I'll be rebranding soon, but for right now, you can find me at Ned Starks Ghost on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm loading content up there almost every day. So check me out. I'd really appreciate it. I also, as I mentioned to you yesterday, Jared, offline, I'm now a brand ambassador officially for Total Pro Fitness. You can find them on Total Pro Fitness on Instagram. They sent me some incredible straps that I used in the gym last night, and I'll be honest, if I didn't like them, I wouldn't. Like, they didn't even want me to like tweet about them or anything. They're like, just try them and see, because it's a new product for them. I'm just testing it, and I think they're the best wrist straps I've ever used in my life. And be talking about them more in the weeks to come, I hope, because I want to stay working with them. And I've got 2 other brand sponsorships in the works. I don't want to drop the dime on them yet, but please follow me and help me cheer me on in my journey.
Just to cover us on the legal side, that was not a paid promotion.
No, it wasn't. And for a shoot, it wasn't, because Total Pro,
free stuff that you were testing.
They asked me to test them out and to overload them, and I think that they gave me one of the best products I've ever had in my life. So I mean, I'd be glad to say that for free all day.
You gonna throw some up on your TikTok, some videos with them?
Yeah. Last night didn't go as I planned in the gym. But I have an amazing video on my Instagram and TikTok from last night that showcases why we fail, Master Bruce.
Well, to get back up.
There you go.
All right. Well, in that case, We will see you next time, which should be next week.
Next week.
A little less fat and a little more fit.